Hello, and welcome back to the Welcome Home by Gina podcast. Today, I have Gretchen with us. I am so excited to introduce her. Gretchen is amazing. She is an educator, she is a mother, she is an author, and a pastor's wife. And she's going to talk to us today about her new book. It's not even a year old yet, called It's a Good Day to Be a Teacher, 52 Devotions to Equip and Encourage Educators. So I'm your host, Gina Romero, author of the book, Welcome Home, A Guide to Homemaking from the Heart. And so, Gretchen, welcome.
Thank you, Gina. I'm so excited to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. I just love the energy that we have together and the things that we have been talking about. And I'm so excited to start the show and get all of this great information over to the mamas that are listening in. So I wanted to ask you a question. What made you write this devotional for teachers?
Well, I had been asked to come back into the classroom after a move and a retirement, I thought I was going to stay home and write picture books. And God said, nope, I got one more assignment for you. So this was a couple years after COVID, and our church's school needed a teacher. So, all right, I'll come and commit for the year. And I was really amazed, shocked, and a little bit horrified at what I saw in the change in our students at that level, and also the weariness that our teachers were experiencing. I'd done a little bit of subbing, but as a substitute, you're kind of in and out and you don't feel the grind of the everyday pressures. And so now being there every day again, I just really could feel it, experience it, and see and hear the discouragement and how much these teachers had taken on. Many schools were understaffed still a couple years later. Teachers were doing roles they weren't trained for. Parents were just trying to survive. And there was all this conflict, and children showed up without the normal verbal skills and social skills that we expect kids to have when they start schools. I began writing devotions just one at a time, not sure what I'd do with them, and shared a little bit online, social media, my blog, but not really serious about it until the Lord showed me this needed to be compiled. And so, lo and behold, he opened the doors and now it's a book.
I love that. I love that. That's so amazing. Yeah, God is definitely on the move with getting this information out. What kinds of topics do you cover in the book?
Well, I included the tagline to equip because I felt like teachers really needed more than just a pat on the back and you got this. I actually looked at a lot of teacher devotionals that were out at the time. You have to do that as a writer. You look for those comps. And that's what I saw a lot of, either heavy on the story, which quite frankly, what teachers have time to read other people's stories? They're busy.
They're
And
living their own nightmares.
right, exactly. Why would you want to read about other people's nightmares? Or I just saw little encouraging blurbs. I felt like we needed more. Teachers are under attack and under fire. There's a lot of spiritual warfare going on in the classroom. I'd hear stories from my own adult children. 3 out of 4 of my adult children are teachers, 2 music teachers and 1 primary teacher. And I would hear stories from them and go, my gosh, I do begin every devotion with a short narrative. Some are true. Some are in first person. I write at the beginning, if it's a first person story, it is my story. If it's a third person story, it might be someone else's that I have tweaked for privacy. That each narrative has truth behind it. And then I apply God's word and lessons about what teachers deal with. So it might be about difficult children. I have some narratives in there about challenges between teacher and parents, between coworkers. I think that's a big issue we don't talk about a lot. Some teachers will tell me, I feel like I'm in high school. And guess what? I have felt that way. I've worked with other women and men, mostly the women who get that kind of catty or clicky. That happens today. It does. It actually happens in any workplace, right?
Yes. Yes, it does. I can
So
attest
I
to that.
address those kinds of issues. It's not just about, in fact, very little of it has to do with how we teach. It's just the life and times of a teacher. And it took a little while to figure out just how to organize the book. I didn't want it to be random. I prayed about it, and God led me to create a 4-term book that starts with the fall because that's when school starts. So there's a fall
Yeah.
term, winter term, all the things we go through in winter term, like coming back that first day after Christmas break is so hard for teachers. And then preparing for conferences, things like that. And then, of course, the spring as we're getting ready to say goodbye to them, and that all important summertime for rejuvenation for teachers. So that's how the book is broken up, and it touches on all those different topics. In the very back of the book, I actually have it in topical list
Okay.
because I
Yeah.
know schools, Christian schools especially, good Christian schools have devotion time for their teachers to gather in the mornings. And that way a teacher could pick up my book, flip to the back and go, you know what, I think we need a lesson today on or a devotion on conflict resolution or dealing with difficult parents. Or there's one on there called swarming, and it has to do with the gossip that goes through with families and how that affects the school. So they can just look at that topic and go right to it.
Well, that's great. That's great. Yeah. So this book, it's A Good Day to Be a Teacher, 52 Devotions to Equip and Encourage Educators, is available on Amazon and everywhere books are sold. I love so much of what you have to say, but I love how you used the word equip because that is such a powerful word. And I actually put it in my mission statement to equip the hardworking wives and mamas of this present generation to live with more peace, more joy, and more beauty in their homes every day. It's just so meaningful for us as believers. We are supposed to be suited and booted. And
Mhm.
through these writings and through the things that you have to say, you are helping to make that come to pass and happen. And like I had shared with you before we started the show, I have found it such a pleasant delight that in these women that such as yourself that God has brought my way to feature on my podcast and get to know and speak with, I always have some nugget of deeply personal connection to their writing and their experience and what they are putting out there for other Christian women. Because as I shared with you, I had become during COVID, my little boy was in kindergarten. We had to pull him out of preschool and he didn't understand that. And he was sad. And I remember him saying one time, I'm afraid I'm not going to remember any of my friends when I go back. You know, little did he know that, well, you know, what was going to happen. And so I was his de facto kindergarten teacher. And I just made up an area of the house called AJ's Education Station and went to our local Lakeshore Learning and got all of the things. And I was like, I'm ready. I can do this. Because I was that little girl that had a desk in her bedroom growing up. And when I would go on errands with my mom to the post office, I would grab the little slips of paper and I would take those home and I would write on them and I would, you know, use my office supplies like white out. I thought I was so cool. So I was ready for this. I know a little bit about what you speak, but I also know that there are a lot of moms that listen to this podcast that either are educators themselves or they're doing homeschooling. For us, we decided that we would put our son into a private Christian school when it was time for him to go into first grade at the end of the fall of 2021. And that was because you touched on it. This going on in the world and the nation at that time was just not okay. And I thought, over my dead body, is he going to go public? That's me. That's just me. You know, there are other women. I was actually speaking a couple weeks ago with some women from my life group through church, and they said that they feel called the opposite way to have their kids in public school to be a light in a dark place. And it was in that conversation, again, just recently that I realized, wow, God really has something to say about how we educate our kids, where we're going to do that, what environment. And so for me and mine, it's having them in the Christian schools. And I also think that there's a little bit of a parallel universe with that to what we're doing today. And what I'm doing with my writing and my ministry is the ministry to the body and not the mission out to the world. That's just not me and my composition. So as we were talking about, fortunately, God has called us both to writing that we are uniquely suited for and passionate about and enjoy, I always think of Moses when he's like, no, no, God, not me. You got the wrong guy. Or Jonah, from the story of Jonah and the fish in Nineveh. So you're a mom and a teacher. How did you decide between public, private, and homeschooling?
That was probably one of the hardest decisions we made as parents, but I remember it distinctly because it was such a big deal. So we had our first in the early 90s. So it was a little bit of a different world at that time. But you have to understand, I was a product of Christian schools. I grew
Mm.
up and went through parochial school, all through college, even. My husband, on the other hand, had excellent public school where he grew up. So we had a little bit different opinion about these things. And then on top of that, my biggest sister, I have four sisters, my oldest, who's 10 years older than me, and I always looked up to her. She was homeschooling her kids. Now, back then, that wasn't so big as it is today. It was
Right.
not as popular. She got a lot of flack for that, but I sure respected her, and her kids did great. And she had her own reasons at that time for homeschooling. So I had that model, and I knew all three were possible and all three were okay.
Mm.
And yet I knew I couldn't make that decision without the Lord. So, number one, we prayed. We had
Mm.
discussions, we prayed, we wanted to make an informed decision. So, we were in a new area, not where I grew up. My husband was serving in his second church at that time, and we investigated the schools around us. And that's what I would say to parents today is please do not make your decisions based on TikTok videos or what your
Oh,
friends are saying. Please
yeah.
go and visit the schools in your community. You may be surprised to find
Mm.
your child's public school teacher might be a Christian who's been there as a
Mm.
calling by God. One of my children
Mhm,
is a
mhm.
teacher in the public school, and I support her 100%. And they may be very good schools with good school support. Your child might need some special attention that the Christian schools can't give. A lot of times our
Mm.
Christian schools can't give the don't have the resources for any special school or
Yeah.
special ed. So that might, I guess I'm just saying, don't rule it out because you don't know what's there
Yeah.
until you go. Even if you choose Christian school, please visit and have time in the classroom, observe, have conferences with the principal, find out what they're known for, what they stress, what's their most important goal. I have been to some good Christian schools. I have been to some okay Christian schools
Mm.
where they are not accredited, or maybe their teachers don't have the same training. They're not necessarily licensed, and their focus might be on teaching Christian concepts, but we also want them to have a quality education. So be listening and
Yes.
learning and ask questions. The homeschooling route is definitely grown, and I
Mm.
100% still support that. I would also just listen and learn about local support groups for that because you'll need that. You'll want that mom support. There's a lot of collaboration that happens with homeschooling and lots of workshops and conferences out there for homeschooling
Mhm.
parents. There's so much support. So none of them are bad, but
Yeah.
not all of them are good. And
Okay.
so that's what I would say. And no matter what you decide, you are a good parent for
Mhm.
taking the thoughtful, prayerful way. I know a lot of pressure on parents to
Yeah.
judge one another. We all do when we compare. And so if you choose public school, I just want to say to that mom, you're not a bad mom for choosing that. If you know in your heart this is where your child needs to be, then go for it
Yep.
and stand up for yourself because
I love
the Lord
that.
is leading.
Yeah. You know what? If you're doing your best is good enough. And I think that's something that I'm starting to say more and more often, even without the qualifier. If you're doing your best is good enough. And I think that most people and parents included wake up with the best of intentions in the morning. Not everyone, but most. And so your best is definitely good enough. Yeah, I can relate to that. I went to private Christian school myself. I know that that was a sacrifice from that my parents did, and it was a great school. And then I went to public for high school, but it's definitely something to consider because also, the finances as well. Being in Los Angeles, private Christian school is not cheap by any stretch of the imagination, and there is competition among Christian schools, and I know of one in our general area of the valley that had to close after COVID and things like that. So it's a blessing to be able to afford it, but that's not where everybody is at. They may want to, but they just can't afford it. And so I love your encouragement there for parents to pray about the decision and move forward in faith. What are some practical ways that parents can support their child's education?
Well, the best way to start, as I said, is to visit, get to know your child's teacher, take advantage of open houses and
Mm.
parent teacher conferences. And you may think, well, of course, but you'd be surprised
Yeah.
how busy
Oh,
we
yeah.
are. And then we think,
Yeah.
what's the big deal? And yet,
Yeah.
teachers want that. They want also to build that trust with you. And
Mhm.
so, if parents will meet them halfway, it will go a long
Mhm.
way for later when there might be some disagreements or we have to have a meeting about this or that. I mean, if you trust your child's teacher, you're more likely to listen to what they have to say
Yeah.
about maybe some concerns. And so be that involved parent with, and I'd caution without being that hovering parent, that
Mhm.
helicopter parent, because we also want our children to be independent. And so just take advantage of what the schools offer and to be there for your child. And listen and learn. You know, your child is going to be different for a teacher than they are for you at home. Just let me tell you, okay? Back in the day, I don't know if you've ever heard this, Gina, but long time ago, we used to do, and for the early childhood years especially, home visits. Did you ever hear of a home visit? Yes.
No.
We would go and visit your child's home, our students' homes in August before school started. We'd bring a little packet and we'd share what we're going to be learning and we'd have some little activity. It gave me a chance to meet your child on their turf.
Wow.
Is really unusual today. Few elementary schools still do it, but it really did give us a look into the family and you get to know me and it doesn't happen very much anymore, but it really did give us a start to build that relationship. Now they have open houses and they want you to come into the school. So do it,
Yeah.
and listen. Your child, because I would see kids in their home, and of course my own kids were the same. Then they'd come to classroom and they're totally different, and they behave different with other kids. They behave different with other adults.
Yes.
So keep that in mind when you're having those conversations. Be willing to listen and hear what they have to say. Plus, teachers have a lot of experience. Even if they're new, they see lots of different kinds of kids. And I've learned a lot from my kids' teachers over the years. Even, when I was staying at home and going to those conferences, they'd say to me, "Oh, you're a teacher, you get it." And yet sometimes I didn't because I'd forget. And this is my
Yeah.
kid when he's at home, but when he's with you,
Yeah.
he's a whole different animal. They are.
Yeah. Yeah. I know it. Our son is such a good person and such a good kid. He's funny and witty and compassionate and kind and intelligent and tall, dark and handsome and all of the things. But yes, we have had the punch in the gut, message from the teacher that's like, okay. So, just doing weird little boy energy stuff and things
Right.
like that. And
Right.
yeah, it is important. It is important to partner with the
Mhm.
teacher. And you mentioned open houses. I'm a little bit type A personality style and a little bit neurotic. And so I would always use the open houses in the spring to ask the current teacher who would be knowing my kiddo, who would be the best fit for him for the following school year. And then I would request that teacher. And I think that served me really well. And then I always had to have, I act as though it's in the past. I have always had to have good communication and partnership with them
Yes.
over and above because we co parent our son from a distance. He's my stepson. And so that means we share him and we don't live close. And so being able to have that good relationship, build that trust, build that rapport really does pay dividends as the school year goes on, especially when I think that these kids get older, where the teacher may be more inclined based on their maturity level and where, a kid is at 11 or even 12 years old, they may seek higher levels of discipline and redirection with, the principal or the superintendent or what have you, and not just handle it in the classroom because when they're in second grade, it's like, okay, they did a goofy thing here. All right.
Mhm.
So I think that that's important as well. What,
Yeah, I just speak on that too? That
yeah.
communication is huge. Absolutely. And I would say when there's communication needed, I encourage parents to go to the teacher first and just have a conversation. Then if there's a problem, bring in a principal. I'm just speaking from experience. I even
Yeah.
write about that in the devotion. It's just we always want to get just like the biblical examples of Matthew 18, go and hear all sides. Sometimes you do need that third person, but
Mhm.
make sure you get the full story because your kids aren't always going to tell you everything that happens.
Yes.
So communication is super key, and make sure you're reading those newsletters and emails that come
Mhm.
home. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
we try so hard, we pull our hair out to try to come up with all sorts of systems to make that home and parent communication go really smoothly with binders and folders and all that. So
Yeah.
utilize all that. But I would say the most important way you can support a teacher is to pray for them and build that. As you
Right.
build that trust, pray for your teacher specifically by name every day, even with your child, especially if your child's
Mm.
having trouble with that teacher, that you begin to train up that child to see that this is a servant of the Lord and it's our responsibility to pray. We have hard days too. And then as you build that relationship, I loved to go to the teacher as a mom and say, I want you to know I'm praying for you. And how can I
Mhm.
pray for you? Do you have any prayer needs?
Yeah.
Eventually, in one school, not with all of mine, but I know there was a group of moms with my number 3 kid and we started praying regularly. That was right around Moms in Touch starting. It wasn't formal, but there were
Mhm.
probably 5 of us would meet monthly, and we would ask the teachers of our kids' school, how can we be praying? And so that meant a lot to them. And again, I was coming at that as a mom, not a teacher, and
Yeah.
yet I taught part time and sub there. And they would tell me how much that meant to them to know that these group of parents were praying for them because they're under they're under the fire. And
Yes.
we are our collaborators as parents and educators and all that. The Corinthians talks about the gifts that we all have, right? And there
Mhm.
are some that are teachers and some that are prophets. And if we can be working unified, we're going to be so much more powerful in the Holy Spirit because we have the same spirit. That's what Corinthians says. We have the
Mhm.
same spirit working through the families and the teachers. And if we can go in that unity of spirit, just think of the blessings and those blessings fall on our kids. Isn't that what we
Oh,
want?
gosh, that's great. I love that so much. Pray for the teachers. Pray for the teachers with your child. That is wonderful. And yes, check the folders. Check the backpack.
Daily.
Before you pack the lunches that night. That's my system. I always like to know what's going on. And then, yeah, the email communication, all of that. Definitely. So good. So, so good. So, how can listeners get more of you? Where can they find your blog? Where can they find you online?
Yeah, I have a blog online, GretchenHuesmann.com, and that's a big, long German name, but it'll be in your show notes. I
Yeah.
do general blogs for everyone. I started writing when I was a teacher, but I was also just writing for the general audience, Christian audience. So my blogs are range in for all people, all Christian people. So you can check that out. My book link is on there, but I do have some special areas on my blog for educators. I also have special areas for women because I do speak for women and
Mhm.
ministry wives. Gosh, we are a unique and special team of women who support our
Yes.
husbands in ministry.
Yes.
So, and I have lots of freebies on there, giveaways. In fact, one of the things I wanted to share with your moms today is that problem solving skills and preparing kids for social situations is one of the number one things kindergarten teachers want their kids to have. I know that from
Mm.
research and surveys that have gone out. So I have a freebie. If you go on my education resources page, you'll see a freebie on there for resolving conflicts, RESOLVE, resolve. So I do a whole talk on this for educators, but it's also helpful for parents of young kids. And I share that with my parents too. Like, let's teach them this verbiage. Let's talk about problems and solving and teach them to know that there are options when they have a conflict with a kiddo. So, anyway, that's on there
Mm.
too. And of course, you can find out more information about my book on there as well. Yeah,
I love it. I love that. And you have your first picture book in the works. I'm so excited.
I
Can you
am
tell us
too.
a little bit about that? Whatever you're allowed to tell us, whatever you can say.
Yeah, I can't share much on social media yet. They've asked me to hold back because, oh, I'm so
Yeah.
excited about my artist and all that. It's
Mhm.
called A Time for Everything, a paraphrase of Ecclesiastes 3 for children. And shout out to Our Daily Bread, who is publishing it. And it is really about balance. I struggled as a mom to encourage my kids to get outside and play when they'd rather play video games. So all of that is intertwined. There's a time to read and sit and listen. There's a time to be rough and tumble down the hills, a time for quiet and a time for silliness. The work of Ecclesiastes is for adults. And I
Mhm.
tried to make it safe and kid friendly, is what I did, and kind of went through a child's day. That's sort of the story arc, a time to say hello and goodbye. And then at the
Mm.
end of the day, to thank God for your day. It's all in perfect rhyme, not in the way I'm saying it, but I'm
Oh,
super
that's
excited about it.
great.
Yeah, I'm really
Yeah.
excited about it. It will be out February 2nd in 2027. But if you go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, I will be sharing there the best first tidbits about it and give people information on how they can get a hold of it. I'll be looking for folks who are willing to be on my launch team. We want to get the word out that our kiddos, there is a time and a place for all activities. So we can do that together.
I love that. My gosh, I'm so excited. And I understand it comes out in Spanish as well.
Yes, there'll be a Spanish version, which is kind of
So
unheard
good.
of in the picture book world initially.
Yeah. Yeah,
And I
sure.
asked my publisher, how is that possible? Because I've heard this all my life. You don't write in rhyme because it's hard to translate. And she said, yours is a concept book. We are translating the concepts, and they have a Spanish speaking person already working on that. So
I
super
love that. Yeah,
excited.
we will be buying a copy in English and Spanish. Cannot wait. And so your website that you mentioned where listeners can go to and sign up for your newsletter is gretchenhuesman.com, and that's GRETCHEN for Gretchen, and then your last name HUESMANN. Gretchen, yeah, Gretchen, thank you so much for coming on the show today. I so appreciate you and your ministry and your intellect and your story and everything that you've had to share with me as well as to our listeners. I'm so grateful.
Thank you, Gina. It has been such a pleasure. And I just want to applaud all the moms and dads out there who are raising their kids in the Lord. And I love this podcast. And I hope you will listen and follow and do all those things for Gina because she's amazing.
Thank you so much. All right. Bye bye for now.